What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over Secret Invasion. Yes, we are. Now, of course, we're still in the Prelude, and the reason why, because when it came to Brian Michael Bendis and the writers at that time at Marvel, they took their time with this event. Like, there was a lot of buildup. And of course, it wasn't just the Avengers and New Avengers. Like, this event affected a lot of different characters in the Marvel universe. Because you're basically talking about the idea that the Skrulls have been secretly replacing people left and right across the world. Some people in government offices are, of course, superheroes as well. Now, you have to remember, only a select few people know about the Skrulls invasion. And so with that right now, you still have some heroes out there who have no idea about the Skrulls basically invading the Earth. And so that's why I say we have to cover everything, because there was a lot of buildup to this event. And again, not just with Brian Michael Bendis, but also other writers. Now, right now in this video, it's all about the Avengers. Now remember, this takes place after Civil War. And so with that, you have two different teams. You have the Mighty Avengers and the New Avengers. Now, the reason why you have two teams is because Civil War was a big event where basically you had superheroes fight against each other, because the American government came out and said there is a new law. If you're going to be a hero in our country, you have to register. If you don't do that, basically you're breaking the law and you're going to jail. That was the whole idea of Civil War. Now, Iron Man and his side, they agreed with the law, but Steve Rogers and his side, they disagreed with the law. Now, of course, at the end of Civil War, you basically had the two sides become their own Avengers team. So the Mighty Avengers are Iron Man's characters who still believe the law is actually a good law, and they work with the American government and SHIELD. And the New Avengers, Luke Cage team, well, basically right now, they are still Steve Rogers' team. Even though he died by this point, they still believe the law is not a good law, and of course they're fighting against it. And so that is why you have two different teams. And of course we have to jump back and forth between both teams when it comes to Brian Michael Bendis kind of building up to basically Secret Invasion. Now, this video is all about the Mighty Avengers fighting against Dr. Doom. Yes, you heard that right, and I'm going to explain why down the road. But of course, we have to actually pick up with New Avengers first, because remember, at the end of our last video, Jessica Jones, she left the New Avengers and went over to the base of the Mighty Avengers. And remember, the Mighty Avengers were the ones who agreed with the American law. And so it's kind of like Jessica Jones saying that she is going to basically join the Mighty Avengers, or actually register, so that she will not be an illegal character right now in the Marvel universe. And that is why in the opening pages, you have Luke Cage right now going to Jessica Jones' office to basically find her. Because remember, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, they got married by this point in Marvel Comics. On top of that, they have a child together. Now, with that being said, that child is very important to both parents. And so at the end of our last video, you had a bad guy known as the Hood who was trying to become the next kingpin of New York. He attacked the New Avengers base. And of course, it put Luke Cage, baby, in harm's way. And so Jessica Jones took their child and she left. And that is why she went over to the Mighty Avengers Tower, because she wants to register. She wants to have the ability to make sure that her baby is safe. And that is why she ran over to the base of the Mighty Avengers. And so you have Luke Cage actually call up his wife. He calls up Jessica Jones to see where she's at. Now, by this point, he knows where she's at. He kind of put two to two together and realized that basically she ran over to the Mighty Avengers Tower because, of course, she wants protection for her and their baby. And so, of course, you have Luke Cage very upset because the Luke Cage, when he looks at his wife, this is him basically telling his wife, you betrayed me. You ran to the enemy because you want protection. But at the same time, it's Jessica Jones telling Luke Cage, you have to look at the bigger picture though. We have a child. Our child gets put in harm's way because of who you are and who I am. And with that, we have bad guys attacking us left and right on a daily. How is that okay for our child to basically be in that kind of lifestyle? Now, if you're me, honestly, you're agreeing with what she is saying. And it's Luke Cage putting his pride in front of what matters most, which is right now his family. And that is very huge because even though you have her bring up so many good multiple good points, about why it's bad for their child to not be here, but out there in the world where, of course, her parents are basically breaking the law, which means that if they do get caught by the Mighty Avengers or somebody else who works for the American government, they have to be thrown in jail. And so it's her saying, Luke, we have a child. We have to protect this child no matter what. Now, of course, you have Luke Cage just get so angry, he breaks the phone because it's him saying, my wife is not listening to me. And I'm upset by this. And I'm going to go to her and hopefully change her mind. And so he actually does walk over to the Mighty Avengers Tower. Now, you do have Luke Cage actually go over to the Mighty Avengers Tower to, of course, talk to his wife. Now, when he gets there, of course, he is upset. But this is also Brian Michael Bendis kind of reminding us what he is actually building up to, which, of course, is Secret Invasion, the big event that's written by Brian Michael Bendis. Now, with that being said, though, this is Brian Michael Bendis right now reminding us that the new Avengers know about the Skrulls. They know. And so you have Luke Cage coming to his wife and saying, how could you come here to our enemies for protection, where right now we have no idea who is a Skrull or not, especially when it comes to Tony Stark. Because remember, the Mighty Avengers, they're on Tony Stark's team. This is his team. They all work for S.H.I.E.L.D. But of course, right now, the new Avengers are thinking that basically Tony Stark is a Skrull. Because to Luke, he's kind of like, you have to realize how Tony has been acting the last few years, especially with Civil War. Because Civil War was such a big event for the entire Marvel universe. Not the entire universe, but really just Earth alone. But still, it was huge. And so, of course, a lot of things had happened in Civil War, especially the death of Steve Rogers. And so this is Luke Cage coming to his wife and saying, how could you come here? We have no idea if Tony Stark is a Skrull or not. But here you are right now under his house, and he could basically kill you are our child. But again, it's Jessica saying you're not realizing the big problem here, though. Because yes, he may be a Skrull. He may attack us down the road. It could be days, weeks, months, who knows. But right now, at the home of Doctor Strange, it's not safe there. And our child almost got killed if it wasn't only for Spider-Man who saved me and our child. But again, it's Luke Cage just not listening. It's his pride that's taking over. Now, of course, with them kind of arguing in front of the Mighty Avengers Tower, you basically have the Mighty Avengers come out minus Tony Stark. He is not there right now. But of course, this takes place right before the Mighty Avengers go out of their way to fight against Doctor Doom, because that comes very soon. But either way, you do have the Mighty Avengers kind of stepping in to kind of hopefully ease the argument down some, because Luke Cage is very angry. He's yelling right now. He's mad at the world. He's mad at his wife and also the Skrulls. But of course, when you have the Mighty Avengers kind of step in, you have Luke Cage begin to call them names like, you're a sellout, you're this, you're that. It's Luke Cage is showing how mad he is at the world, but especially his wife for coming here to their enemies. Now, remember, the new Avengers, they know about the Skrulls. But when it comes to the Mighty Avengers, only two characters know. Only two characters. Tony Stark and Jessica Drew. They're the only two characters who know. Because remember, Spider-Woman was on the new Avenger side. And when they found out that Elektra was a Skrull, you had Jessica basically take the dead body and show it to Tony Stark. But again, on the Mighty Avengers, that is the only two characters who know about the Skrulls. And you have Luke Cage basically tell the Mighty Avengers, you should ask her because she knows about the Skrulls and your boss. And he walks away. And the Mighty Avengers are like, wait a second. He says Skrulls. What do you mean about Skrulls? What's happening right now, Jessica? But of course, you have Spider-Woman not telling Black Widow anything and leaving. But she does say we should wait for Tony Stark to tell us more about the Skrulls, because what he knows is actually very important. Now, the last section of this chapter is basically the new Avengers getting a new base. And really, their new base is an apartment. Now, it's a nice apartment, but of course, it is an apartment. Because remember, the Iron Fist is on this team. And so, of course, Iron Fist has some moolah, where he was able to actually buy out this apartment. So, of course, the new Avengers could have a base. But of course, as this book closes, we actually do see Luke Cage very bothered with the idea that basically his wife has left him. Like right now, to Luke Cage, they are officially done. They are going to separate and possibly get a divorce. Like that's how crazy when it comes to Luke Cage and his pride and the idea of his wife basically right now on the other side with the Mighty Avengers. Like this dude is very, very hurt by it. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Mighty Avengers number 9. Of course, we're now getting into the idea of the Mighty Avengers fighting against Doctor Doom. Now, before we actually see that battle, we actually pick up with Doctor Doom in the past. Because right now, you have Doctor Doom going back to, I want to say is the 6th century, to hang out with a character known as Morgan Le Fay. Now, the reason why Doctor Doom does that is because it's really him going to her as a way for her to show him how to use magic so that he'll become a more powerful threat to other characters down the road. And so basically he does go back in time, hang out with her, and she does teach him magic. Here's the problem though. Because this man has gone back in time so many times that basically him and her, they have formed some kind of relationship. And so, of course, she wants more from him. And so she tells him if he comes back here again from the future, which right now it is for her case, when he does come back, she wants him to bring her something. Now, of course, Doctor Doom does not want to do that because he's very afraid about the idea of bringing something from the future to the past that could basically ruin the future somehow down the road. And so he's kind of like, we'll see. He says no, but of course, as a married man now, you know, when your wife says she wants something, 9 out of 10 times, you're probably going to buy it. Now, when Doctor Doom does get back into the present day, you do have some of the scientists basically tell him, hey, we possibly have a problem. So one of your satellites that had the Venom bomb project basically released that bomb. And of course, all of New York was turned into symbiotes. And right now, the Avengers were able to kind of get rid of that problem, but they were able to kind of find out that we were the ones who had made that satellite. And so right now you have literally the Avengers on their way to battle against you for technically attacking the United States. Now, of course, with the Avengers attacking Doctor Doom, this kind of leads into what I say is Brian Michael Bendis being Brian Michael Bendis. And what I mean is that, and honestly, I didn't realize this until somebody told me. And then when I went back and read a lot of Brian Michael Bendis books, but basically Brian Michael Bendis was really big on the idea of splash pages. Now, splash pages were done before him, but of course, he's really big on it because for him, it's kind of less work to write things about in those splash pages. And also, if you're trying to show off a huge action scene, then of course, you're going to do a splash page. And so with the Avengers attacking the home of Doctor Doom, Latveria Castle, Doom, whatever, basically, you have a lot of splash pages. Like this man wanted you to see the big battle between Doctor Doom, his Doombots, against Iron Man and the Mighty Avengers. Like, there were a lot of splash pages. And I'm like, man, this is Brian Michael Bendis being Brian Michael Bendis. Now, of course, this actually leads into a battle between Doctor Doom and Iron Man. Now, this is Marvel being Marvel. And what I mean by that is that basically, over the years, Marvel has tried to make Iron Man say that he's a rival to Doctor Doom. And in respect, he is. Because usually when folks look at Doctor Doom, they say he's the rival to Reed Richards. Mr. Fantastic, that is it. But for me personally, I say no. He's a rival for Iron Man as well. Because when it comes to the smartest people on Earth, yes, your top two is Doctor Doom and Reed Richards. Sometimes Valeria, but also it's kind of like, depends on the writer. But either way, Iron Man is still up there in some categories. And when I say categories, I really mean that when it comes to your top people on Earth, the smartest, when you want a weapon made, you go to Iron Man. Reed can make weapons, but Iron Man is better at making weapons. That right there is very huge to say. Now, that's why I say Doctor Doom is a rival to Iron Man because of that. Because if you're Doctor Doom and you're making weapons and Tony Stark is able to make a weapon that can beat your weapon, you're basically rivals. And so right now, these two characters, they're rivals. Now, while you have the two characters fighting against one another, here's the big thing. The Sentry steps in. But when he does, when he hits Doctor Doom and also kind of hits Iron Man as well, they fall through the floor and they land on Doctor Doom's time machine, which of course takes them back in time. And so they're going on another time adventure, Doctor Doom and Iron Man, because this had actually happened before back in like the 1980s or 70s. I forgot what decade. But either way, it's happening all over again. Now, of course, when Iron Man wakes back up, he does look around and he basically sees that right now he went back in time. Now, at first, he has no idea. At first, he's kind of like, okay, where am I? What's happening? Why does New York look different? Why does New York look like what it used to look like back in the old days? Telling Iron Man, oh my God, I went back in time. Now, with that being said, though, when Iron Man realized that, of course, you have Doctor Doom attacking Iron Man because Doctor Doom is ticked off at Iron Man. And so Doctor Doom wants to fight Iron Man because now it seems like they're trapped in the past once again. Because again, this kind of happened before with Doctor Doom and Iron Man. Now, when we actually do pick up with the Sentry, because remember, the Sentry was also with Doctor Doom and Iron Man in that last part of the battle at the Castle of Doom. And of course, all three characters fell into the time machine. And so with that, he actually ended up somewhere else. but still the same time period. So like they're all in the same time period, they're all in the same city, they're all in New York, but the Sentry is somewhere else in New York. And so when he wakes up, he realizes something seems off with the area. And when he begins to fly around, he also realized that the heroes seem different because he actually does see Thor. But Thor looks like classic Thor. And so you have the Sentry say, why does Thor look so different? But then he also sees something else that makes him realize that something must have happened. Because that is the moment you actually have the Sentry see his watchtower. Remember, in the present day, you have Avengers Tower. But on top of that tower, you also have the watchtower that belongs to the Sentry. But in this time period, there is no Avengers Tower. There's just the watchtower that belongs to the Sentry, which of course tells them, oh my God, where am I? This is a different time period. But when he sees himself also in the past, he definitely realized that he's right now not in the present day. On top of the fact that basically he's fighting against the Void, but the Void is some kind of like your regular thug character. But either way, it's the Sentry realizing, oh my God, I went back in time. How in the world do I get back to the present day? I gotta find Iron Man and Doctor Doom. Now, getting back over to Doctor Doom and Iron Man, you do have the two characters actually fighting against one another because they're upset with one another for a lot of different reasons. But while you have the two characters fighting against one another, you do have Iron Man say, stop. Like, stop it right now. We have to realize that right now we're both at fault here. Like basically right now, you and I have to work together because if we don't leave, we could ruin everything for time across the universe right now. Like basically us being here is a huge risk. And so of course you do have Doctor Doom realize that he actually has no choice but to work with Iron Man. Because if he doesn't, it could lead to more problems down the road for basically almost anything in their universe. So he's like, fine, we will work together. We have no choice. Let's do it. Now, you do have the Sentry once again just fly in out of nowhere and begins to attack Doctor Doom because this is a Sentry upset with Doctor Doom because he blames Doctor Doom for where they are right now because it was Doctor Doom who kind of did make that Venom bomb that basically meant that he did attack the United States, which of course led to the Avengers going over to Latveria to get revenge to capture Doctor Doom. And of course, it led to them falling into a time machine and going back in time. But we also have to remember, by this point in Marvel Comics, the Sentry's mental health is at an all-time low. It is not good. Like his mind is very fragile. And that right there will play to a very important storyline down the road known as Siege. But either way, right now, it's Iron Man saying, listen, Doom, stop attacking him because he can kill you if he actually put his mind to it. But you have Doctor Doom say, can he? Because right now, it seems like his mind state is not good. Which of course is Brian Michael Bendis telling us that the Sentry's mental health is not good, but of course that's a very bad thing because this dude is very powerful, but he's also holding inside the Void, a very powerful character. Now, you do have Doctor Doom and Tony Stark and the Sentry realize who would have a time machine at this point in time to basically help them get back into the present day. And of course, that would be Reed Richards. Now, with that being said, though, of course, the problem is, though, they cannot be seen by Reed or any other members of the Fantastic Four as they're breaking into the Baxter building. But here's the thing, though. You have the Sentry realize if they do break in, it should be him. And the reason why, because it seems like this is the point in time where, of course, everyone still knows the Sentry. And what I mean is that, so when Brian Michael Bendis brought in the Sentry in Marvel Comics, he basically said that the Sentry was around forever. Like basically he was there at the very beginning of Stan Lee's work on the Marvel Universe. with the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and so on and so on. The Sentry was always there, but the reason why you never saw him in those comics until now because he was forgotten. And if I remember correctly, it's because he was basically holding the Void, this powerful creature that could wipe out the entire universe. And so what they did was Reed basically made a machine to make the entire world forget about the Sentry as a way to kind of protect him, but to also protect the universe from the Void. And I want to say the Sentry also forgot who he was as well. And so with that being said, he basically been forgotten about the world. And so at this time point they're in right now, the world still knows about the Sentry, but of course that means very soon they're going to forget about the Sentry when Reed makes that when Reed makes a machine to make the world forget about the Sentry. Now, of course, this does sound like a good game plan, but at the same time, it's still a bad game plan. And the reason why is this right here. They have no idea when the big moment happens when Reed makes the entire world forget about the Sentry. It could be minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years. And so with the Sentry going into the Baxter building with that thought process of they're going to forget me soon, and he fights against a thing, you don't know when that machine's being made by Reed, which could mean that basically they could remember you and try to figure out why was a future you here in the past for. But of course, for Brian Michael Bendis, who cares? The story does move on. And so either way, you actually have the Sentry being able to get the time machine. Now, of course, you do have our characters being able to actually use the time machine as a way to get back to the present day. Here's the problem, though. When they do arrive back in the present day, Doctor Doom is not there. It's just Iron Man and the Sentry. And they're kind of like, where is Doctor Doom? Because when they used a time machine in the past, they were all standing together. And so it's kind of like, okay, if we were all standing together, then where is Doctor Doom? And then when they go to the sky, they have Miss Marvel running to them like, we gotta get out of here. And you're kind of like, what's happening? What in the world is going on? And of course, that is the moment you have one of the biggest explosions in this storyline happen. And you're kind of like, what did Doctor Doom do when they all arrived back here to the present day? Now, that is the moment where we jump into the final issue we're going to cover in today's video, which is Mighty Avengers number 11, where of course we actually pick up back in the past once again, but this was a different moment where you have Doctor Doom talking to Morgan Le Fay about the idea of having an army. Now, of course, you're wondering, what does he mean, an army? An army of what? And of course, it's an army to use that's basically to fight against his enemies, but this army is not going to be men or some kind of alien race. Is going to be creatures, devil-like creatures, as Morgan Le Fay say they are. And of course, these creatures would be perfect for an army for Doctor Doom to use. And so, of course, he does make a deal with her, like, if you teach me, I'll give you something you want in return. And of course, she had to agree because we jump into the next section. Now, we actually do jump in the present day. And when I say the present day, I really mean like moments just before Iron Man and the Sentry had arrived back in time. And what I mean by that is that basically we pick up with the Mighty Avengers getting ready to fight against Doctor Doom by themselves. Like somehow Doctor Doom was able to get back in time before Iron Man and the Sentry arrived back in time in the present day, which of course gave him enough time to basically release his army of the mindless ones. Now, the mindless ones are a group of creatures that have been used a lot by different characters, and basically they're kind of like used as a way to kind of send out to attack an enemy to keep that enemy busy, because the mindless ones will just keep going and going until they're completely wiped out or their enemy is completely wiped out. And of course, like I said, a lot of people who use the mindless ones kind of use them to kind of hold their enemies back for a time being until they're actually able to get rid of their enemy. And so right now you have Doctor Doom using the mindless ones to attack the Mighty Avengers minus Iron Man and the Sentry. And so of course the Mighty Avengers actually lose to Doctor Doom and his army of the mindless ones. Now, when they basically wake up, they're basically being kind of kept in stasis. Now, of course, that means like they're not completely in stasis, so they can think, they can use their mouth, but they can't move their bodies. And of course, they're kind of wondering if the Doctor Doom they're talking to right now is the actual Doctor Doom or a Doombot. Because remember, Doctor Doom is known for having Doombots, basically robots that look like him to replace him to do different things around the world. And so right now they're wondering if this guy right here is a Doombot. But of course, it is the real Doctor Doom. Now, you do have this Doctor Doom basically tell us that he was able to get back here before Iron Man and the Sentry was, to kind of figure out what all happened originally before the Mighty Avengers arrived to attack Latveria. Because what you have Doctor Doom tell us that the Venom bomb that came from his satellite was created by one of his scientists. But of course, they had not had the chance to actually test that project. And so of course, when that project basically fell to New York, it was because Ultron had attacked the world just right before the Venom bomb incident happened. And so with Ultron attacking right before that storyline, the Venom bomb, basically Ultron attack made the satellite haywire and dropped the bomb early before Doctor Doom was able to actually test it. Now, of course, he also says the reason why he's not trying to kill off the Mighty Avengers, because right now Iron Man has arrived with new kind of tech that basically Doctor Doom cannot fight against. It's basically Doctor Doom telling us that at this point, Iron Man still has the extremist armor. And so, of course, with the extremist armor, Doctor Doom has no idea how to actually fight against it, which of course means that right now he cannot beat Doctor Doom. And also, he realized he's actually at fault for the invasion on the United States because his scientists failed to test the symbiote project. And so right now, it's Doctor Doom realizing that basically he's kind of spot where he has no choice but to let the Avengers go. Because as soon as Iron Man and also the Sentry arrive, he's technically screwed. On top of the idea that the Mighty Avengers also have the God of War Ares. And so he's really screwed. And so he's kind of like, okay, I really don't have time for all of this mess. Now, that is the moment where you basically have Spider-Woman being able to kind of override the tech that basically Doctor Doom is using to keep the Mighty Avengers in stasis. And so, of course, with her actually being able to do that, that means the Mighty Avengers were able to break free. And when they do, of course, that means they're able to actually fight against Doctor Doom. But that is the moment we come to find out that Doctor Doom had basically placed a bomb to blow up as soon as Iron Man and the Sentry arrived back in the present day from the time machine. And so you have Carol leave to basically go warn them about the explosion. And so that is why at the end of the last chapter, we saw Carol Danvers in the present moment now. We're now in the present moment, running to Iron Man and the Sentry saying, get out of here. And that's, of course, the reason why we saw an explosion, because Doctor Doom placed that bomb there to blow up as soon as Iron Man and the Sentry arrived back. Now, the Sentry was not hit by the bomb because he flew away to meet Carol Danvers halfway, but Iron Man stayed behind close to the bomb. And so, of course, when the bomb blew up, Iron Man did take a major hit from the bomb, which of course did cause a lot of damage to his suit. Now, with that being said though, of course you then have the Sentry kind of use his energy to kind of charge up Iron Man's armor as a way to save Iron Man's life. And so, of course, Iron Man was able to actually survive for another day. Now, with the Avengers being actually able to deal with all those different problems that Doctor Doom was throwing at them, and of course, with Doctor Doom not being well prepared to actually fight against the Mighty Avengers, you do have the Mighty Avengers go find Doctor Doom, and really you have the Sentry step in, because the Sentry is the one character that Doctor Doom really can't fight right now, especially right now. And so you have the Sentry being able to just get to Doctor Doom and just stop him in his track, where basically you now have the Mighty Avengers being able to say that they were able to actually arrest Doctor Doom for what he did with the Venom bomb in the earlier storyline of the Prelude Skrull invasion. Now, of course, after the big battle, you do have the Avengers go back home to the helicarrier or Avengers Tower, but we actually pick up with the helicarrier, of course the main base for S.H.I.E.L.D. And remember, by this point, Iron Man is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, with that being said though, you do have Maria Hill trying to cheer up Tony Stark by saying, look, we won. You were able to go to Latveria and actually capture Doctor Doom. Like, come on. That is a huge win right there. And of course, it's Maria Hill saying you should also thank Spider-Woman, because if it was not for her powers to basically break everyone free, you could have died right back then and there. And of course, Maria Hill is right. But also, you have Tony Stark kind of wondering if he can still trust Spider-Woman, because Spider-Woman did bring him a dead Skrull body. And so he's kind of like, oh yeah, I still have to deal with that. The idea that we could possibly be invaded by the Skrulls right now. And so he's kind of like, I'm excited, but at the same time though, we could be invaded by Skrulls anytime soon. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Black Widow going to Spider-Woman, because this is Black Widow continuing the idea of telling us she does not trust Spider-Woman at all. That she looks at Spider-Woman in a way of like, you're a spy for the new Avengers, the other team, or that you're basically working for somebody else and we have no idea why. But it's also Black Widow not knowing that basically the only reason why she's on the team right now is because Spider-Woman brought Tony Stark a dead Skrull body. But either way though, it's also Black Widow saying, when it came to you saving our lives back in Latveria against Doctor Doom, I read your files, your powers, whatever happened there, that should have not happened at all with your powers. Basically saying that you did something new with your powers that is not in your file. And when it comes to S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. has files on everybody and what their powers can and cannot do. And what we saw back there, that was not in your file. And so, of course, it now makes Black Widow even more worried about the idea of, can she trust Spider-Woman? And the last page is really more of us getting one more look of Morgan Le Fay, where basically you have her realizing that Doctor Doom has not come back to see her, which of course means to her that there could be a possibility that he was captured or possibly killed. Now we know he was captured, but either way it's her actually being worried for her man. But of course, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. And again, guys, we are literally just building up to Secret Invasion. And the next storyline we cover for Captain Marvel is even better. Like, it really does play with the idea of the Skrulls slowly invading the Earth. You'll see what I mean in our next video. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.